Welcome to the Phil and the Kid podcast. I'm Phil Gardner.
And I'm Spiro Resellis.
And today we're talking about Renovation, the first R in Brrrr. Don't eat KFC 3 minutes before podcasting, kids.
Just don't eat KFC in general.
Or that.
Ugh,
I mean,
there's better food.
But the captain. Wait, no. Is he the captain? No, he's the colonel.
The colonel.
Wow.
That's the captain.
Fuck. I'm thinking crunch, maybe. What other food variety of military terms? Anyways.
So, today, we're going to try our best to truck through this one. Just ate a full big, what is it called? Big box?
Big box or whatever
Big box.
garbage you were eating?
Yeah, from KFC. It wasn't a good call. I tried going to Chick-fil-A, and that was also a bad decision because there's nowhere to park downtown Toronto. The traffic was ridiculous, and it just wasted pretty much half an hour of my life driving around Yonge and Bloor.
So walk-in only for Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, walk-in only. So then I drove to the KFC there on Bloor and almost Christie area, and
feeding for chicken.
Oh my God, it was just... I just kind of wish I didn't go. But it was pretty tasty, I'm not going to lie. The Big Crunch, spicy Big Crunch
solid
sandwiches are pretty good.
Yeah, it is solid.
I asked for a tender instead of a what are they called? Drumstick. And the tender was like 2 inches. It was ridiculous. And
there's a joke in there that I'm going to leave alone.
Yeah, it was just, you know what? Overall, I'm straight up not having a good time.
This might be a rough podcast, but Spiro's going to truck through.
Yeah. So today, we're going to talk about the first R in the Brrrr process.
Yeah.
Which is renovate, or you might have heard it as
rehab.
In
other circles.
In other circles, yes. So we're going to talk about that and some of the things to look for, what to do to save money, how to kind of budget, and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But first, Phil, how was your week?
It's been an eventful one, to be honest. I don't know if those of you that might follow me on social media found out. I posted it, and it must have been a couple days ago now. Some guy, I'm assuming just some random account spammer, stole my face and all of my photos from my my social media accounts and created another guy. What the hell is his name?
Oh, I can't remember. It's in
Beck,
your chat.
Something Beck.
Mason Beck.
Mason Beck, yes. I have an alternate personality out there that
Mason Beck, that
is scamming people off of Bitcoin, apparently, named Mason Beck with my face all over it. We went deep, too, into his account.
Way more followers than you.
That's the embarrassing part. Guy's got like 145,000. I'm going to say 143,000 are probably bots.
Yeah.
That's just to keep my ego safe. Because just for someone to steal my face and, you know, beat me on the follower count stings a little bit. But we got him taken down with like record time.
Yeah, that was
posted
really
it and
quick.
He was down on Facebook in, I don't know, like half an hour.
Yeah, I told some people to report it, and they're like, "Oh, it's not here anymore." And it was like an hour later.
Yeah, it worked out okay.
Yeah.
He stole like he went back too. Like he had honeymoon photos. There's pictures of like just my wife on the account. There was content from our podcast that was like on the account.
There's a picture of me, you and I, you and Simon eating ice cream.
Yeah, Simon and I eating ice cream.
I've never seen that photo.
That's deep on my Instagram. Like we were doing property inspections one day, like just so deep, like 2 years ago probably. So who knows how long my face was stolen for, but he's gone now. So that's good.
That's so crazy.
It was so weird.
That
was like a buddy of mine just posted in a group, and he was like,
is this Phil?
Hey bud, you should probably check that out.
How did he find him?
I think Facebook's algorithm must have saved my day here. He matched my face because he's friends with me on Facebook, and it came up as like a "you should be friends with this person" or whatever that feature is, because he has the exact same face as one of your other friends.
No way. Does Facebook do that?
I have no idea.
Could be.
It was just in general because he had no other mutual connections, right? No mutual friends. So I don't know how that came up on his list, but I'm very glad it did. What else happened? Oh, last night I got smoked on an offer. Big learning lesson here. We put the offer in. We were the only person on the table, and I was probably a little too cocky / confident. Only person on the table. I expected if there was other people that were going to put in offers that I would, hear back, be given the opportunity to increase our offer, given my conversation with the agent was, hey, this is a starting point, right? I call her. She kind of like dodged me for a little bit. Called her back. Finally got a hold of her, and they had already accepted another offer that was under what my client was willing to go to.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, the first time ever I've actually like given someone shit on the phone. Like it's like, dude, you knew I was gonna go up. You knew that,
What did
like,
they say?
Oh, sorry, it's already been accepted. It's, conditional, come back if it falls apart kind of thing. So it is what it is.
Some agents are just so bad.
It was just like, hey, quick and dirty, get the it's here now, right? Let me just take this offer and be done with it, probably.
That's
not
what
her
happens,
client's
though.
best interest, I'm sure, because I'm sure we would have gone higher than what they ended up selling for. But I mean, big takeaway for me, right? I lost that offer from something stupid as I should have just followed up or been there
Just
in
been
person
there
to present.
physically, yeah,
exactly.
It's always best to just show up physically.
Yeah. And these clients now might take a back seat for another few months. So who knows if and this is one that's going to sit with me for a while. So good learning lesson.
Yeah.
Be on top of things. If people aren't getting back to you, stay on top of them, especially if you've got a tight timeline coming up for a deal. But lessons aside, what was your week like?
My week, pretty, the usual, just client meetings, just getting my name out there more and more. So it's pretty nice. I think the previous, couple months that we've had has been really, really good for both of us. I think just getting our names out there, showing everybody what we do, and just a different perspective on real estate. So it's just, I think it's a nice fresh view, and it's just good going forward. I don't know. I'm just going to keep doing the same old things. And
if it's working, why change it?
It's working. Yeah, exactly. And then I also went to my homecoming,
that
which
must have been interesting.
Yeah, it was. It was different for sure. First homecoming, not actually part of the school anymore as an alumni. So that was pretty interesting. I mean, definitely don't have the energy I used to.
Can't party like a rock star so much anymore.
No, that's that was like 4 or 5 years ago. Now I'm retired from that. I'm just like I was the old man. I wore my Laurier dad shirt, my Laurier dad sweater.
Oh my god!
So it was fun though. It was nice. I saw a couple people, and they actually gave feedback on the podcast.
Oh,
that
good.
was the craziest thing. Yeah, they're like, "Hey, you have a podcast now," and I was like, "Yeah." Wasn't even thinking about that. And they're just like, yeah, I love real estate. And I was like, okay.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Positive feedback?
It was all positive. Like. Yeah. There's a couple like, I haven't watched any yet, but I will. And I was like, okay. You don't have to tell me that. But yeah, so overall it was pretty fun. And yeah, now I'm just back to work again, back to reality. And I'm pretty happy those days are over for me. You grow out of them pretty quick.
Yeah. If you go hard in the first few, you get it out of your system.
Yeah, I got my fix, and now I'm just ready to work and hustle like I have.
It's tough to keep up with.
It is. And then also, so what happened? What was that in the news just now? There's a closing on the Gardner.
Oh yeah. So the Gardner Expressway, for people like me who have to travel, up York Region and beyond to see the folks. This is going to suck. Gardner, as of yesterday when this launches, has a Jarvis. The Sherbourne Jarvis exit going eastbound.
Has to be one of the busiest.
Yeah, it is closing. And exactly. That's the last one before
is
you
it
get
the
off
on-ramp
at the end.
too?
I'm not sure if it's the on-ramp as well. The off-ramp for sure. And that's the last one before you get off at before you get off at the end of the Gardner and have to turn around on Lakeshore kind of thing, right? Like that's the one that people get on at Spadina and immediately line up to get right back off type of thing.
Oh, and
so for that to be closed, it's just going to be a gong show, I'm sure. And that's closed until they say spring 2020. So who knows? See. Who knows when that's actually closed until?
Yeah. So try to plan your routes around that.
Yeah. No kidding. For the next 6 to 8 to 12 to 24 months. Who knows? Really?
Hopefully it's not. Hopefully it's not too long.
Yeah. No kidding.
All right, let's jump into this. I'm going to try to survive today.
You can make it.
Feeling it.
We believe in you.
I thought I had a couple heart attacks already. But,
just feeling the chicken palpitations.
It's a new nickname. All right. So, renovations.
Mm-hmm.
As we said in, what was it, episode 4?
Yes.
Buying is is practically the most important part, but you have to have every other part planned.
Yeah.
So like we stated previously, you know, your whole end goal is to repeat the process, which is the last R in Brrrr. Buying is going to allow you to repeat easier than anything else.
Yes.
But renovating has a lot to do with renting. So if you renovate properly, effectively, you minimize your costs, put the proper things in. So, you know, whatever it is, flooring, finishes, etc. Get the right people working on the project and really minimize your costs. Once you rent, you're going to really reap the reward, and then you know, the process goes on.
It also has a big impact on the next R in the refinance perspective as well, right? Because if you kind of junk in gets junk out, if you're putting in quality materials into the right areas of the home without going too far beyond, then you're really going to be able to maximize the value on the refinance side as well, as opposed to, you know, if you go and spend 200 grand in a renovation that could be 50, you're probably not going to get that back from your refinance, right? No. And to the same token, if you buy a complete shithole and you put in 10 grand, you're probably not going to change the value by much either if you're just, you know, repainting the walls and changing some windows.
And actually, I think we see that a lot as realtors, where the opposite, the first thing you said, where people overspend a tremendous amount.
Big time.
So they'll buy a property, let's say it's $900,000 in a $1 million area, and they'll put, you know, $250,000 worth in it, and then try to sell it for 1.5, 1.6, but it only gets 1.1, 1.2 after that.
If you're already pushing the highest house on the street kind of thing, you can't go and make it the Taj Mahal and expect it to sell for Taj Mahal prices at Jane and Finch. Right?
No. So I think we see that a lot. I've seen that a lot lately.
Yeah.
And I think those end up sitting on the market for a long time. It's not a great idea to get into.
I don't know.
Not a good strategy. I don't know who gives them that, because I think it's just people who, I think it's usually contractors or someone who's in the industry in some way and thinks they know a little bit more than they actually do.
Could be those looking as like an end user as well, and it didn't work out as well as they needed to exit in a dire situation and trying to recoup their loss. I've seen that happen with some investors, right? You overspend on all these different facets, and then you go and try and recoup your loss, only to realize the market is not there to allow you to recoup your loss. So it sits, and you just accumulate more loss as you're paying mortgage, paying utilities, all this stuff.
The holding costs really kill you.
Yeah. So, for some, when you get to that state, it's better to just kind of cut and run, move on to the next project, and kind of take your lumps. But I think the space where it is valid to go and put in, I don't know, whatever, 200,000. Some investments are valid to do that, but let's call it a renovation that could be done for 50 if you want to go and spend 150, 200. If you're going to live in the home, it's a totally different scenario, right? Yeah. If you're going to be the one, if it's your actual family home, do whatever you want if you're going to be there long enough to justify it. Whatever fit and finish, it's far more worth it to put that into your own home that you actually care about. But we're talking strictly in terms of investments here. So there needs to be a line between where I'm budgeting and it's going to get paid back for the renovation. But I guess we can start with something a little bit more basic and talk about the few things that actually do add value, or how we can add value to a home that's otherwise in pretty rough shape. Obviously, a huge part of the Brrrr method is being able to refinance a property and pull money out. So we're always talking about properties that aren't in perfect condition, right? There's always going to be some way that we can add value, meaning the property is probably not in the best shape, not in a shape that an end user would buy and move into, because there's not really going to be a spread on that if we go and renovate and just swap like for like.
Those properties usually that you get that are turnkey or almost turnkey are more for investors that just want to buy, a little piece of real estate, maybe one unit, just kind of sit on it, mainly for appreciation gains in the long run. Yeah. You're not really looking for much cash flow or anything. You probably already have a stable job, probably have a steady passive income already and other sources, and you're just kind of buying it, sitting on it, minimizing your headaches in any sense. And you get your tenant in. It's probably a good quality tenant because it's all renovated nicely, and you just sit and wait. That's it. Where you really reap the large reward is when you get those fixer uppers, those shithole homes that you find with, you know,
you can really add some, you know, repair a lot, update a lot, and really add some value.
I was gonna say with a dead body that was in it for a month. 3
months, I think,
3
was
months.
another property. We'll do some videos on that one shortly.
That will come soon. I'm not looking forward to that, to be honest.
Right in time for Halloween.
I was thinking about it before I was going to bed yesterday. I was like, I don't want.
Bring some sage and whatever.
I'm going to bring
a
cross. I'm bringing a cross. I hope, you know, on the video, you will see me holding a cross in every room. What else is there? What else do you need to bring? Okay, let's get back to the subject here. So you want to add value.
Yes. So keeping in mind, these are all going to be fixer-uppers of some variety, right? So the things that we're typically going to, my biggest thing, and I think I mentioned this on the last one, and you hear Brendan Turner mention this on the Bigger Pockets podcast often, is adding living space where there wasn't any. And I'm not talking about, not living space, sorry, but like bedroom space. I'm not talking about doing an addition to add on square footage to the home. But let's say a lot of these properties nowadays downtown will have a dining room and a living room, and most homes typically don't have, like, that dining room set just sits there for 2, 3, 4 times a year maximum that get used when all the family
maybe
comes
holiday.
over. So it's otherwise a dead space, and we're talking about a city like Toronto where square footage is kind of a commodity. At being able to take an underutilized room and turning that into a bedroom can add a lot of value, because you can then, especially because a lot of our tenants are going to be like groups of friends, you have another friend that can move in. That's another $800 that someone can pay, because
it's huge. It's huge.
Massive. By what? Throwing up some 2x4s, some drywall, and a door, right?
You recover the cost in practically a month.
Yeah, it's that is one of the biggest value adds from a rental renovation perspective. Something to be cautious about, because when you do go, some banks, some appraisers, if you are going to go and just cram a bunch of bedrooms in a home, they're not going to look so kindly on that. So, I mean, my line is usually 4 and below, typically 3 upstairs, maybe 1 could be bedroom on the main floor, add maybe some you know, what do they call them? French doors open to the living room and the dining room, and a separate door on the dining room. So if somebody wants to use it as a 4th bed, they can. If they want to use it as a dining room, they could also do that. I'm a big fan of adding flexibility.
Like the 3-bedroom plus one.
Exactly. I'm a huge fan of adding flexibility into spaces. So like if you have 3 tenants, but they want the open space, they just leave the doors open.
Exactly.
If you have someone who wants to use it as a bedroom, I'm not going to hold that against them.
And then you charge a flat rate of whatever it would be for the 4 rooms.
Exactly. We're not doing it by bedroom, right? We're just going to we're going to base the price off of a little bit higher. And we do the same thing with, like, a lot of basements have this, is where you'll have one proper bedroom with window and closet, etc. And then this one little dinky space that's maybe like 8 feet by 9 feet, but it doesn't have a window or something. And you can't really call it a bedroom, but I'll call it a den and price it up a little bit, knowing full well someone's going to use it as a bedroom, because that's just how competitive things are in the Toronto rental space. So aside from, and that's a big value add from a rental perspective, right? Not such a huge value add from the refinance perspective. When we're talking about things to do for the refinance, it's typically the same things you would do if you're going to go list your home and it's in rough shape and you want to get top dollar for it, right? Your kitchens and your bathrooms are almost always going to be the biggest return. They could also be the biggest expense if you're not paying attention and you get some crazy custom kitchen in a rental where you don't need one, right? So we're typically getting, I mean, you could do a Home Depot, IKEA kitchen, no problem. A lot of our contractors do the kitchen construction themselves, so it keeps the cost down. So what we'll do is a pretty basic, like Home Depot / IKEA level kitchen in terms of cabinets, but with a quartz countertop and an undermounted sink for the kitchens. What that does is it classes it up a little bit, right? So you're now a hair above in terms of finish quality the majority of the available rentals on the market, but also far more durable than the crap countertops that you'll pick up from other places that aren't a stone variety, right? They're going to last you a lot longer. They're going to look a lot better. And honestly, the cost isn't that much more unless you're doing some gigantic kitchen, right?
Yeah, if you think about it, you're probably going to have to replace your wooden countertops or whatnot every little while if you're going to try to get a top dollar for rent.
Yeah.
If you're not looking for top dollar, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's always good, especially in Toronto where there's so much competition. You always want to be a little bit nicer.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like what you said with the bedroom thing and refinancing. I mean, if you're in a student, town, again, I always go back to like a Waterloo, Windsor area. Yep. You just want practically as many bedrooms as you can. You really don't care about anything else. You have a small living room, a kitchen, and as many, 9x9 spaces, 10x10 spaces as possible.
Wherever someone can stick a bed and a dresser.
A bed and a dresser, literally. Yeah, you just stick 2 and 3 in the basement, 4 or 5 upstairs, you're good to go. So it's a little bit different again. When you look at Toronto, which is where we like to focus, GTA, it is a little bit different than those areas.
Yeah. And what goes along with kitchens is the bathrooms, right? You can do a nice bathroom like refin. A lot of the places we're purchasing already have bathrooms in place, at least 2 out of the 3 in most cases. But when we're talking about bathrooms, we're just going to rip and refinish more or less everything in there. 12 by 24 porcelain tile is not that much more expensive than 12 by 12 ceramic tile, and it classes it up quite a bit.
Exactly. Tiles are one of the best add values, I think, because it's such a small cost in comparison. It's a couple more, what is it, $100, few $100, maybe $1,000, not even.
Nah, not even.
And you get really nice tiles so that the potential tenants walk in and they look at
you just want that wow, right? That wow factor
awesome.
When they first walk in. Same thing, little things like mirrors too. You spend an extra $20 and you get one that's far nicer. Light fixtures is another one. We use a lot of these like LED domes nowadays that throw off a ton of light, or LED pot lights kind of just thrown everywhere so they don't overheat like the old school ones. You don't have to replace the bulbs at like $15 a piece, right? And it's kind of a cleaner light. Those are some other common things that we throw in. In terms of like flooring, painting, like we're always patching and painting everything anyways, because the homes are usually in pretty rough shape.
Might as well too.
Yeah, exactly.
No point not to.
Yeah, and for the flooring, nowadays we're doing like a vinyl laminate or like a vinyl plank floor that looks like a wood laminate flooring, but it is far more durable, right? You spend a hair more, probably like 30% more at most on the flooring itself, like the material. But let's say if you had a flood in your basement, or a tenant drops has a party, someone spills a beer and forgets to clean it up, right? That happens on a laminate floor. That floor is going to bubble, just because you went with the cheaper floor, but you now have to go and replace a whole section of it, right? It also scratches a lot easier. That vinyl floor, we've had units in the basement that have flooded a foot of water. We've had to replace drywall and baseboards and everything else. As soon as it was dry, the floor was just fine again, right? Those floors are like indestructible. So we put those basically everywhere nowadays, because of the durability, and they look nice, right?
They do look nice.
Great floor, great paint. We're kind of like just condo finish everything: white bathroom, white kitchen, gray floor, gray paint, pot lights everywhere. And just from that cosmetic perspective, it's not that expensive to hit that line, so long as you don't get crazy and go above and beyond with expensive individual light fixtures and some fancy taps and those types of things
you don't
right?
need at all.
Things exactly that you don't need, things that the tenants aren't going to look at.
Those are end user items.
Precisely.
I wouldn't not for rentals.
Yeah. So other things, what else are you going to be doing in a renovation? There are some stuff that is mandatory, or stuff that you should certainly consider doing, that could potentially cause you longer term headaches that might not be a value add. Things like your furnace, your roof, your windows, what else? Your AC foundation. A lot of these homes, especially in Toronto, right? They're going to be 100 years old. So either at some point in their past they had a leak and that's already been addressed, or it's coming up, right? And that's one of those things that we have our inspectors take a pretty close look at with their, the humidity meter and stuff, to see how much moisture is really making into the basement. The last thing I want to see someone do is spend $30,000 to renovate a basement, put a tenant in. April hits, you have some weird snow and then some weird rain, and then a massive flood in the basement because you didn't take the precautions to waterproof it, right? Then all of your hard work is for naught, and you've got to spend to repair all of it all over again.
It's always worth just doing it right at the beginning. Yeah. It's a cost that it's like 10, 15 grand.
If that. A lot of the homes, you're somewhere between 8 and 12 probably
8 and 12
for waterproofing exterior,
Yeah.
like at least 1 to 2 walls, and like it's one of those costs that unfortunately you won't recoup on your refinance, right? It's not something an appraiser looks at and says, "Ooh, pretty waterproofing," but
which probably should be, but
yeah, no kidding.
makes sense.
But at the same time, it's protecting your investment, right?
Yeah.
And the same items like furnace, AC, those aren't things that are going to increase the value of the home. But if one of those things goes out in the middle of the winter, it's going to be a bit of a pain to go back and take care of it kind of on the spot, where if you knew you needed to repair it ahead of time, could have just been done in the initial renovation. Roof, same idea. Windows, same idea. Last thing you want to do is not pay attention to those. And again, you could have a leak, and that's, again, going to damage your nicely finished interior, right?
The best way to think about it is you want to fix everything that you know needs fixing before any tenants are in, before you're making any money off of it, and just do it right away.
Yeah.
The less headaches you have going forward, or your property manager has going forward, the better your investment is.
Yeah, get it all done up front and let it just kind of coast from there.
And let the property do the work after that, and let your money make more money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And then what else we talked? So budgeting's also important, right? So this is one of those things that you could take care of ahead of time, or you could take care of after the fact. And I could tell you I'm sure you can all guess which one is more important, like which one you should do.
Yeah.
Typically, when we're making offers for clients, we're putting in, A, you might have an inspection clause, right? But B, we're typically putting in multiple visits. So you should be lining up, using those visits, lining up your contractor to get started, figuring out your scope of work, how much work you want to be doing with the property before you close, right? Or else you're just going to delay this entire process, pay carrying costs for no good reason. If you're going to be starting all that scope of work creation, quoting it out after you close, then let's say your contractors are busy, because if it's a good contractor, typically they're not going to be available right this moment. So you could end up paying costing yourself another 2-3 months.
Just holding an empty property.
Yeah,
that's just
exactly. That's never a good feeling.
No,
a good feeling when the property's sitting there and draining you instead of paying you, right?
Exactly. And that's extremely important, I think, is being proactive and just getting that done first, which is something that we will help our clients with. I mean, I think you've always advised your clients to do that.
Yes.
And show them how. I mean,
I usually help them make the scope of work.
Yeah,
and line up the contractors.
Line up contractors, handymen, and whatnot, to kind of go in there, give a little bit of a quote, then you know what to look for, and then budget roughly 10 to 20% extra.
Yeah, there's I've never seen a renovation stay on budget, right?
No.
There's always something that pops up when you open the walls. So I think a good margin is usually 10 to 20%, depending on the size of the project, to budget in for just that contingency for those things that could go wrong and inevitably, unfortunately, will go wrong or will pop up on your project, right? Especially if you're running it on a real tight margin and you might be pretty close to your capital limit. Make sure you build yourself in a cushion, right? Because the worst thing, and we've seen these, is to have a property that you can't finish renovating and it's just going to sit there. And that's, God forbid that ends up happening.
Oh, that's the worst.
Because those hit the market. They've got like open permits, some violations sitting
Nobody
there,
wants
half
them.
renovated. You got to pay cash kind of thing if they've got open permits and violations. It's just a bit of a headache. So you want to be avoiding that. Obviously.
Budgeting is so important.
Huge.
I mean, in the whole process from buying to all the rest. I mean, if you don't budget properly, this isn't the game for you.
No, exactly. And another one being, like, if you are lucky enough, some people will go firm on deals. I, again, wouldn't suggest it unless you really know your stuff. But typically you're going to have, let's say, a 5-day condition as an example on inspection. Is just kind of a little pro tip. Try and line up your contractor and your inspector to go at the same time, and prepare at least a rough scope of work to go with them, so that your contractor can give you a ballpark estimate before you firm up on the property, right? It's at least, and that way you can, or if your inspector, let's say, finds something during the inspection, then your contractor's at least there to give you a kind of a quick off the top estimate, so you can go back and negotiate on that, right? Worst thing to do is not have your numbers, know your numbers in a pretty firm way, and then go firm up on the property, and then find out later that your construction budget is going to be double what you expected, right?
And a lot of times,
then you're locked.
Well, I don't want to say a lot of times, but it's definitely a possibility that once you do find something that wasn't known prior, so the sellers didn't know there was this sort of issue, whether it be old insulation or a leaky basement or whatnot, and you do have a deal in place, you can go back and renegotiate. Say, hey, listen, we're gonna have to spend 10 grand now on this.
Yeah.
Let's lower the price by 10 grand, or let's lower the price by 8 grand. Maybe there's some flexibility there. The seller might think, okay, look, all the paperwork's here. There is an issue on our property.
Yep.
And now it's known. Okay, here.
That's a big thing, right? Especially if the seller wasn't aware of it before, and you, through your inspection, have made them aware of it. Depending on what type of defect that is on the property, they might have to be informing everybody of that now, right?
Exactly.
So they've put a black spot on the property, so they're more inclined to negotiate with you and just get the deal done than to have to go back and explain that problem to everybody.
And this is all by being proactive, taking the right measures beforehand, before you firm up.
Yeah.
And you're already, set in place for any hiccup.
That's right. So I mean, another big thing worth mentioning when it comes to contractors and handyman and those that are going to do your renovation, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people have heard this elsewhere as well, is kind of like the contractor or tradesman or whatever trifecta of quality, speed, and price, and it's more or less you get to pick two, right? So if you're paying nothing, or if you're paying very little compared to the market price for a construction budget, expect that the contractor might be quick, and they might be cheap, but the work might not be held up to the greatest standard. And that could be fine for your rental property. It's very likely that you're going to have to stay on top of that contractor quite a bit. And it's very likely that that's probably not a contractor that you might want to use for your own home, or maybe not in general at all, depending on, how large of a project you're going to be doing. And to the same token, if a guy's cheap but he's got quality, don't expect him to be fast. And if he's fast and he's high quality, he's probably got a big team, a good system in place. He's been doing it for a while, and he's probably not the cheapest guy on the market. Everyone's at a different stage, and I'm not saying, any combination of those two is incorrect for your property. I have been known to like using the cheap, quick guys sometimes, but everyone's got a place, right? For every size, every style of project, every contractor has a place. So just one of those things to be aware of. Always see the previous work of a contractor, especially if you don't know them or they're not coming from a recommendation. Always get a solid estimate on paper, as well as a timeline for the renovation.
Yeah,
Sorry.
And little tips are to price out each individual project that the contractor is going to be doing. So ask for specifics when you do get quotes from contractors. If they're looking at the washroom and you need to rip out the shower, tell them, how much is that going to cost? How much is the tiling going to cost? How much is the new tub going to cost? How much is the floor going to cost? How much is that new mirror going to cost? I'm just making up things.
You might drive some people crazy if you went into that detail. I know a lot of contractors that would turn around and walk away if you're like, tell me how much the mirror.
Yeah, okay, maybe not the mirror.
Each pot light's actually justified, but like, how much is the tap? And how much is the faucet?
There are some things
the shower head, but
you have to remember, this investment is the most important thing you're ever going to do, especially if it's your first.
Yes.
Because that's I don't want to say make or break, because you learn your lesson, and there are ways to recover the money, and you can sell and start fresh. But the first one could make this process way faster. If your first goes well, which a lot of times it doesn't if you're not informed properly, but if you do take the right measures and make sure everything's going well, your second will come a lot faster. 9 to 12 months, maybe 2 years. That's still very fast for another property.
Yeah.
If it doesn't go well and you don't budget these things, and maybe you do give your contractors a lot of slack, like do whatever you want. Oh, how much is the overall price? I mean, that's great if you're like, they're like, oh yeah, it'll cost you 30 grand for everything. Well, then don't be surprised when you're actually paying 60 grand when it's all done, because they're like, oh, this came up and then this came up, and then you're like, I had no clue. When you tell them to go into each individual room and say, this is what I'm going to be doing here roughly. I mean, it's not perfect again, but you don't have to be as detailed as I said. But again, if you ask for certain things and they provide you those certain things beforehand, you can always go back to them and say, hey, why did this cost triple the amount you said before? And if they don't have a good reason, then they're probably not a great contractor. If they have a good if they're like, oh, this happened and then we found this, you can go, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's worth it. Okay. So it could, especially going forward, if you plan on using a contractor again for another job, it's a great way to sort of narrow down your playing field and find the people that you're going to want to work with in the long term.
Yeah.
So right now, our team has a few contractors that we use in Handyman that, we've done our research on. But going forward, always looking for more and growing that portfolio. That's what you get when you choose a team of investor agents. For the most part. It always helps too when you look on your own, but it's nice to have a place that we can refer you to as well.
Yeah, maybe a couple other things to add to that, pricing out certain items. If, let's say you're pushing the upper limits of your budget and you're able to block out a few specific items, it can help you if the quote comes in high, tailor down a little bit to maybe or you could refer with your agent to say, or whoever's going to guide you through the renovation, to say, hey, maybe I'll pull this item out because it's not going to add as much value, but it's costing X. So if I don't have the full budget, maybe I'll just leave that one out and I'll do that later or something like that, right? And oh my gosh, totally blanked. Yep, totally lost it.
Oh my God, I'm the one with the itis right now.
It's been a day.
No, you said
carrying on.
All right. Well, no, it was about individual pricing and.
Yes. Okay. So certain contractors, if you're working with a quality contractor, and this is something that I would recommend everyone put together a good contract for, go in with a set price for a set scope of work and a set timeline in mind. If anything is going to vary from that, so let's say you made it from a $30,000 contract to $60,000 somehow. You always want to have some paper trail, right? There needs to be a change order if the contractor goes up and says, oh, hey, I open up this wall. It's got knob and tube. We need to replace knob and tube throughout the entire house. It's going to cost you $10,000. Okay, that's great. I want it on paper. I agree to the price, et cetera, so this is going to cost me X. Nobody should ever be surprising you at the end of a project with a double bill or something along those lines, right? If it's minor stuff, a couple $100 here and there, I usually let it slide. But for anything major that pops up mid-project, there should be a change order, some type of paper trail, and it
covers both of you. It covers the
exactly.
contractor and yourself.
If the contractor's going and repairing stuff and it's not part of the original contract, you could just say, hey, I'm not paying for it, right? Any smart contractor is going to want to cover themselves at the same time.
I don't recommend doing that to your contractor.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Not a good way.
I'm saying it's an option. I'm not saying it's a good one that you should exercise.
And then there's also different ways of paying your contractor. So what do you like to do? How much do you pay up front, or how much do you pay halfway through? What do you usually?
A lot of guys will say, hey, can I get 50% up front? I have heard of so many people getting burned that way.
Yeah.
Like, especially, I've heard of people doing like top ups and paying them $200,000 up front. Don't ever do that.
That sounds like a terrible idea.
That's how the contractor gets really incentivized to be a really shitty person and walk away with all your money. I typically start with, I know they need to buy a lot of materials up front, right? Having worked with so many, you understand the bulk of a project comes when all the material, or the bulk of the cost comes when a lot of the material has to be purchased. So I try to kind of tailor along with that, maybe 25% up front, so that they can really, really get started. And then depending on the size of the project, you can break it out to stages. Like if you're having it inspected, let's say, hey, when I pass the framing stage, hey, when I pass the plumbing stage, I can do another payment. And I like to hold a good bulk for the end as well. For let's say 20%, something that's enough to incentivize the guy not to just leave your project and say this 20% isn't worth it. Let me go on to another project where I can start making all those payments all over again, right? If it's a smaller project, sometimes I'll just go week by week, knowing that, hey, the plumbing might not happen at the same time as the framing in this part of the house. So long as I still see progress every week, I'm okay to keep paying it, but I want to see progress of some variety. But the two most important things being, don't pay too much up front, and that's just to keep yourself safe, and save enough at the end that it's incentivizing enough for them to finish the project and finish it properly. Like when I'm talking about final payment, in most cases the contractor has already said, hey, I'm finished, and then I'm going to go back to the property, do a gigantic walkthrough, put sticky notes all throughout the house where I think it might not be done to my expectation, or certain things that might have been left off as I cross-check through the list of the original scope of work. And then I provide them with what's called a punch list, and essentially a list that needs to be completed before their final payment, right? You want enough incentive left in the deal, left in the contract for them to complete that final payment, or for them to complete that list of work to earn that final payment.
And as you said, too, it all starts and ends with that list.
Yeah.
You want that list from the beginning. And that's why
Yes.
it makes sense to go in and tell them, I want you to look at this, or ask them, tell me everything you see.
Yeah.
If you see anything, write it down.
Yep.
And a good contractor, I mean, I don't know if all handymen would do it, because a lot of the time you're paying for the difference in handyman and contractor. Contractors usually have more licensing, are, I don't want to say more qualified, because, I mean, feel like that's a little bit subjective.
It's so easy to get a general contractor license
it's,
or whatever it is.
It's whatever. Yeah, it's whatever qualified, but you can have a handyman that's been in the business for 30 years and knows what they're doing. But at the same time, you have that extra qualification, and sometimes there's teams with it, so the prices are different.
Yeah, I think the term handyman is a little more small scale usually, right? Maybe just for quick fixes here and there. Typically, the projects that we're talking about in this Brrrr are maybe a little bit too big for like a one-man show handyman kind of thing. So I probably wouldn't be hiring a handyman off Kijiji for a $50,000 project.
No.
It might end up taking you a whole year. And so that's, the price might be there, back to the triangle, the price might be there, the quality might even be there, but the speed is going to be hugely impacted. And when you're paying the mortgage every month without tenants in the place, that stings, right?
Yeah, the speed's pretty important when you're trying to get an investment going.
Yeah.
So what's your opinion on giving bonuses or deductions on quotes?
I've never really experienced bonuses. I know some guys will like bring a contractor into as part of the project, from an equity stake if they're doing like flips and things. Not something that I've experimented with yet. From a deduction standpoint, I like having it in a contract as a form of recourse if need be, and it usually ties with, hey, what's your expected completion date? I'll give you a couple week buffer after the completion date. I'm not, I'm usually pretty flexible. And then after that, let's say you're really going long and it has nothing to do with me or changes. Obviously, if changes happen to the project or I change my mind on something and I'm the cause, or the property is the cause of the delay, you can't hold that against somebody, right? But if the contractor's team, something about their company is the cause for the delay and it goes kind of beyond my grace window, if you will, there's usually a stipulation built in. I can't even remember what it's called at this point. It's been a while since I've had to exercise one, but a stipulation built in where you could charge back or deduct your carrying costs for that period of time, right? And I think that is a fair recourse to have. I don't like using them if I don't have to, right? But it's good to know that's there, and it's a good it's a good more of an incentive for your contractor to stay on task, right?
Yeah, and the same goes with the bonuses. There are ways of having it in the contract where if they finish 2 weeks early and everything's good, they get some sort of extra. It doesn't have to be a crazy amount.
Like, you can do the same thing in reverse. Hey, I saved X on my carrying cost because you finished sooner.
Here's your money.
So here's a bonus.
Yeah, and it does give that extra incentive for contractors to maybe finish early or at least finish on time.
Yeah.
If they get the extra, maybe 5%, maybe it's 3%, maybe whatever it is.
It's just nice, right?
It's just nice. It's like a nice gift, and hopefully it makes them want to try to finish 2 weeks early, so that when they do go late by 2 weeks, it's on time, and that really helps out in the end.
Yeah. Another little random pro tip: pay your contractors quickly. Don't pay them 2 weeks after they're owed their money. If the stage has been completed, or if the contractor's like, hey, change order, I could use some cash for this or whatnot, or this goes for anything, not just in the middle of a large renovation, right? If a contractor goes and repairs some plumbing item at your house or some HVAC item and they send you an invoice, pay it right away. Contractors love to know, anybody really, anybody likes to, when you send them an invoice, that it's paid immediately. You are I don't know what it is about, human psyche, but you just end up being top of their list. If you call that person later, they know you're
more
the guy
reliable.
that pays. Yeah, you're the reliable guy that's going to pay them quick once the job is done. I don't need to chase you. It doesn't need to take up my brain space to go and follow up on that invoice.
No hassle. Yeah, you just get your money and
pay them quick, and they will stick with you.
And
right?
especially at the beginning, like you said, when they're going to have to be spending a lot of money, maybe even personally buy all those objects that they need.
Of course.
Buy all the materials yourself. Yeah.
And that if they can't afford it, or if they can't, if they're midway through a couple projects and they're expecting a payment from you, you're going to end up holding up your own project.
Yeah. So even take that initiative at the beginning, look at everything they need, price it out with them and then say, okay, write them a check. Here you go. Get all this stuff. Now there's no excuses. They have all the materials needed. I mean, they're probably going to need more as time comes up, but at least they have the bulk right away, and the other costs aren't so much, so that even they'll be more incentivized to go and just grab that extra
that chicken coming back.
Yeah, the chicken's really hitting hard now.
Cool.
Was that I'm sure there's much more.
Yeah, I mean, you could go on and on and on for hours about construction.
It would definitely be more detailed.
I think we definitely covered the important bits, right? Make sure you're adding value to the right spaces in the right ways, value that you're going to be able to recoup on your refinance. Don't over renovate.
Nope.
Do not put in gold door handles. I mean,
Trump toilets, gold Trump toilets.
Yeah, exactly. Don't put in the useless stuff that's not going to be, value add for you.
No.
Repair the stuff that needs to be repaired that might not be a value add if it's things that could come back and bite you later, like roof or foundation that might leak, those types of things. Put in durable materials. Quartz countertops aren't that scary. Vinyl flooring is totally worth it. Make sure you've got a contingency in your budget, and make sure you find the right contractor and follow and stay on top of your project. It's not your contractor's job to manage your project. The responsibility should always lie with you as the owner, right? And that's pretty much it for the high level of the first R in the Brrrr process. Next time we jump into the joys of renting.
Ooh.
That's a spicy one.
We'll
for me.
Have some horror stories.
Oh, I'm sure.
That.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've got tons of horror stories.
Not from you, from other people.
Yeah, of course.
All right. Thanks for tuning in again. You know where to find me, Spiro Versalis, at Spiro Versalis, SpiroVersalis.com. LinkedIn, Spiro Versalis. It's pretty much just my name. If you know how to spell it, you know how to find me.
Yeah, you're not the most common name, so it's you can rank on Google pretty easily.
I'm pretty sure I'm the only Spiro Versalis
in the world.
Probably. Well, my grandpa was Spiro Versalis.
We gotta find this out. We're gonna have to Google this afterwards.
I'm pretty sure I am.
Yeah. All right, we'll figure it out. We'll update you next time. And you can find me at more or less the same places: philgardner.ca, Phil Gardner on Facebook, Mason Beck apparently on Facebook as well.
No, don't look that up.
Apparently he doesn't exist anymore. Fuck Mason Beck. philg.re on Instagram, and then all of our Phil and the Kid on YouTube.
Yeah, follow the podcast.
Yeah,
at Phil and the Kid.
Be sure to like, subscribe, comment.
Hashtag PATK baby.
There you go.
See
you guys next week.
I think we're done.
Yep.
You can find us on YouTube, iTunes Podcast, Google Play, Podbean, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and now Spotify. Thanks for listening.